Welcome back to our study of the Heavenly Family in the Old Testament. We have a lot of important things to cover from this week's reading, so we thought we'd split it up into two segments. We'll start with 2 Samuel from chapter 11 to the end, and then in part 2, the first 11 chapters of 1 Kings.
And obviously, there are things in the chapters that are not part of the assigned Come Follow Me reading assignment that are nevertheless important for our study. So that makes a lengthy reading.
Indeed. In 2 Samuel 14, we have the story of the Wise Woman of Tekoa. Briefly, the setup is that David is estranged from his son Absalom because Absalom killed Amnon in revenge for raping Tamar. Yeah, not a nice episode for David's family. But Joab, the chief captain, wants them to reconcile for the kingdom's sake, so there'll be a clear heir to the throne. So Joab hires a wise woman from Tekoa to trick David into reconciling with Absalom.
Here's the question. Why go find a woman from this particular town to play this trick? Why was that noteworthy for the Bible record to report so specifically? And what constitutes a wise woman?
These are such great questions, such fun questions, and honestly easy to look past. Let's start with the town, Tekoa. Well, Tekoa is in the territory of Asher. There's little more in the biblical narrative about the tribe of Asher than just boundaries and troop counts. But there are a few points for us to piece together. We said in the last few episodes that Ashratah was another Hebrew name for Heavenly Mother alongside of Shaddai.
Ashratah is what we find written on potsherds and on cave walls, whereas the Bible editors changed Asheratah to the Phoenician version of her name, Asherah, to make it appear that she was a foreign goddess, which she was not.
Well, Jacob's son, Asher, is named after Asheratah, Asher being the masculine form of her name.
We can tell this because of the Genesis account of his naming. And Leah said, "Happy am I, for the daughters will call me blessed." And she called his name Asher.
Now, happy am I is the Hebrew expression be'oshri, and it literally means by my happiness. The word blessed here is also from the same word, happy, ashrei. A wordplay was clearly intended. Ashrei, happy, blessed, and Ashratah sounded quite similar and were frequently used in puns in the Old Testament and the Book of Mormon, by the way. Leah is saying that she's happy her handmaid has given birth, so she names this son after Ashratah. There may also be an additional wordplay here. Some scholars have suggested that an even better translation of this text in Genesis is Ba'asherah, by Ashratah, or meaning with Ashratah's help, like help in the delivery.
Yes. The inference is that Israelite women down through the ages called on Ashratah's aid in childbirth. Thus, on this view, Leah names Zilpah's son Asher, both because she is happy at his birth and because she gives credit to Ashratah that the outcome was successful.
Okay, so our wise woman of Tekoa is from the territory of Asher, and Asher is the male form of Ashratah, an important name for Heavenly Mother.
Next, we look at Moses' cryptic blessing to the tribe of Asher in Deuteronomy 33. Let Asher be blessed with children. Let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. There are two connections to Ashratah here. First is the theme of fertility. It is Shaddai that bestows the blessings of the breast and of the womb, as we saw in Genesis. And second, the association with the sacred anointing oil.
Well, the rabbis that compiled the Talmud in the first few centuries AD believed that Moses' blessing to this tribe of Asher, that he would dip his foot in oil, predicted that olive groves would dominate the landscape and the economy of the territory of Asher, which they did. Here's what the Talmud said. Moses' blessing is referring to the territory of Asher, since the oil flows there like a spring. The passage from the Talmud goes on to tell the legend of a man from Laodicea in Greece who needed 60 million shekels worth of olive oil, but he could procure such a huge amount neither in Jerusalem nor in Tyre. He was only able to get it in Gush Chalav, in the territory of Asher.
These rabbis also associated this abundant production of oil in the territory of Asher with wisdom. This is from the same section of the Talmud. The Gemara notes the effect of Tekoah's oil on those living there. The verse states, "And Joab sent to Tekoah and fetched from there a wise woman." What is different about Tekoah that Joab chose to bring a woman from there? Rabbi Yohanan says, since the residents of Tekoah are accustomed to use of olive oil, wisdom is prevalent there. All of this points to the most enduring name of Heavenly Mother in the Bible, wisdom. It was wise women, women in whose heart was the spirit of wisdom, that were to fashion the drapes and veils for the tabernacle, and the garments and robes for the priests.
With men like Bezalel, Miriam's grandson, that were inspired with the spirit of wisdom, that were to fashion the brass implements and things for the tabernacle. Now, Joab wasn't just searching here and there for a smart or clever woman that could carry out his design. Presumably, he could have found that much closer to home. In some way, this wise woman of Tekoah must have been carrying on the tradition or even the office of Miriam, who stood before the tribes of Israel as the mortal representative of Lady Wisdom, our Heavenly Mother. This is further suggested by the next wise woman incident that we encounter, since it clearly does involve a recognized political and spiritual office.
This is in chapter 20. Joab is pursuing a fellow named Sheba, who led a revolt against David. Joab lays siege to this wise woman's city. She comes to the wall and summons him, the chief captain of the whole army of Israel, and he obediently comes and listens to her. They parley, and she promises him the head of Sheba. This promise is obviously authoritative because the next line reads, "Then the woman went to all of the people in her wisdom. They cut off the head of Sheba and threw it out to Joab." That's from the WE version of the Bible. At which point Joab's army retreats.
The discussion at the wall between Joab and this wise woman is especially interesting. The modern English version captures it best. She said, in former times they would say, let them inquire carefully in Abel, and thus they would resolve an issue. I am a trustworthy and faithful one of Israel. You are attempting to destroy a city, even a mother in Israel. Why do you swallow up the inheritance of the Lord?
Abel is her city, so it seems that people would come to that city to inquire of the Lord and settle matters that way. So it was an important city. Then she says, I am trustworthy and faithful. That's singular, referring just to herself. So she's an important woman. She is speaking as a leader, and several translations reflect this specifically.
And then she asks, why destroy a city and a mother? Now, most translations have something to the effect of, why destroy a mother city? And doubtless that's part of the meaning. But she's also talking about herself. Why destroy a royal mother in Israel? And then, of course, we're immediately reminded that Deborah, who was similarly powerful, summoning the military commander of her day to her, deciding on military actions, war and peace. She was also called a mother in Israel, or a mother to Israel. So she was also called the Lady of the Torches and the Lady of the Lamps, right? This is all official nomenclature.
And very deep in Heavenly Mother imagery.
Absolutely.
So it seems that to be a wise woman was a title, no doubt a religious one as well as a political one. In the next few weeks, we're going to see other examples of this. Women that act in an official capacity as representatives of Heavenly Mother, the way that priests and kings stood before the people representing the Father and the Son.
Now, 2 Samuel 22 is a Psalm of David. It's the one we looked at previously in connection with the storm god attributes of Yahweh. It's Psalm 18. But here we want to point out something subtle. Back in the time of the Exodus, the rock was Shaddai, Heavenly Mother. The rock gave forth the life-saving water in the desert. But then it dried up when Miriam died because she stood as Heavenly Mother's symbolic representative to the people. The rock symbolically travailed in childbirth to give birth to the nation, and then suckled them with oil and honey, because Shaddai is the breastfeeding mother goddess. In Numbers 1, we saw the name Shaddai. Shaddai is my rock. So the Divine Mother is the rock.
But now, several hundred years later, in King David's time, the rock is becoming the Lord, Yahweh. The psalm opens, The Lord is my rock and my fortress and my deliverer. My God is my rock. In him I will trust.
Several hundred years yet further along, when the Nephites break off from Israel, they seem to inherit kind of mixed recollections of the rock being Shaddai. So, for example, Nephi in 1 Nephi 15 seems to refer to all three members of the heavenly family, saying that when his people come again to the knowledge of the true gospel, they will give praise unto their everlasting God, that's clearly El Elyon, El Olam, the Father, the rock, plausibly Heavenly Mother, as we've said, and salvation, which would certainly be Jesus because Yeshua means Yahweh is salvation.
This seems especially likely given that the whole discussion surrounding this is about being grafted into the olive tree, the mother tree, and receiving nourishment from the true vine. Again, in 2 Nephi 4, we have this pairing, the everlasting God, El Olam, and the rock.
But by Helaman 5, several hundred years further yet on, we have Helaman teaching his sons that it is upon the rock of our Redeemer, which is Christ, the Son of God, that ye must build your foundation. So while the earliest Nephites may have had some understanding of the rock as Heavenly Mother, that seems to have shifted.
Which, of course, is just fine. As we've mentioned many times, Jesus Christ assumes the roles and titles of both his heavenly parents. And that's it for the first half of this week. Hope you'll join us for the second half.